As we mentioned earlier, a third lawyer connected to former President Donald Trump accepted a plea deal Tuesday in the Georgia election interference case. Attorney Jenna Ellis pleaded guilty to aiding and abetting false statements. She will serve 5 years probation, pay a $5,000 fine, and write an apology letter to the state of Georgia. She offered a tearful statement to the court Tuesday in stark contrast to what she said after the 2020 race.
All of your fake news headlines are dancing around the merits of this case and are trying to delegitimize what we are doing here.
What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges.
4 out of 19 co-defendants have so far pleaded guilty. They've also agreed to testify truthfully in future trials related to the case. Let's bring in Nick Lewis. He's the founder and managing member of the Lewis Law Firm and represents clients in federal and congressional investigations. So, Nick, help us understand exactly what Jenna Ellis is pleading to and how that might fit into the larger context of the case.
Well, thanks so much for having me, John. Ms. Ellis today pleaded guilty to one felony count of aiding and abetting, sort of filing of false statements. She had been charged with 2 counts, a RICO count, but also this false statements charge. And so she's not pleading guilty to the RICO part of that. But it's a very significant development because she, like Mr. Chesbrough, who pleaded last week, and Sidney Powell as well the day before, have all agreed that they will testify truthfully against their co-defendants. And so this is sort of another piece in the puzzle that Fani Willis has to sort of bring additional pressure on the former president and the other defendants in this case.
And how important is it that 3 of those 4 pleadings are from lawyers who at one time were supporting the cause? Does the fact that they were lawyers, which means that they were closer to the former president, does that suggest they're kind of a more powerful witness now for the prosecution?
Well, I think that's exactly right, John. I mean, first of all, these individuals, to varying degrees, could be considered closer to that sort of inner circle, people who were providing advice to the former president, part of the legal team driving this strategy. These are people who were going out not only in Georgia, but in other states and filing these lawsuits alleging that there was election fraud, which was obviously critical to Mr. Trump's attempts to remain in office. I think they will, varying degrees, I think they will be viewed as credible witnesses because in the case of, Kenneth Chesbrough, Jenna Ellis, these are, individuals who have a license to practice law, who have ethical obligations to be honest to the court. Here, they're going to have to come in and say, look, I was wrong. I did something wrong. I should not have lied to Georgia state legislatures. I should not have crafted these memos about this fake elector scheme, and I'm going to pay a penalty for that. But I think when they do that, they will be convincing. Now, I think Sidney Powell, remains to be seen whether or not she will be a credible witness. I think she has been out there sort of making sort of some incredible statements. I think there's in Jack Smith's indictment, there's even an indication that the former president had referred to her as maybe not entirely credible. So it may vary between those who will be sort of most credible and powerful for the prosecution.
Is this the way racketeering cases go? In other words, prosecutors try to get others and then kind of move up the chain to the more powerful or bigger parts of their case? And if that's the case, how do you assess the nature of the case and its strength based on these pleadings?
That's exactly right. I think that is one of the key reasons one would bring a RICO case. I think that was clearly Fani Willis's intent to bring what many had said was a very sprawling case, 19 defendants covering any number of things, everything from testimony to Georgia state legislatures to breach of election equipment down in Coffee County, Georgia. But right away, right after the indictment came out, you started to see how this plays out. All of these defendants have different lawyers. They have different strategies. Some are trying to bring cases in federal court. Some are trying to bring them in state court. Then you start to see the dominoes start to fall. Scott Hall is sort of first out of the gate. He takes a plea deal. He might be able to provide some information and testimony about Sidney Powell. Suddenly she pleads guilty. Kenneth Chesbrough sitting there thinking, well, now I have to go to trial by myself. I won't have Sidney Powell sitting next to me. All the attention's going to be on me. She seemed to get a pretty good deal. Maybe I should get in on that too. So he pleads. Jenna Ellis is now the third lawyer in a week to take a plea agreement. So you start to see this add up. And each one of these defendants kind of implicates other people. So, for example, Kenneth Chesbrough, when he pleaded guilty, that's not going to be a good day for John Eastman because the two of them worked very closely together. And for Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis, Rudy Giuliani has got to be sweating a little bit more after their guilty pleas as well. So that's how this works, and I think that's what Fani Willis is continuing to pursue, is moving towards the top.
Nick Lewis, founder and managing member of the Lewis Law Firm. Thanks so much for being with us.